Hello peeps, welcome to another drawing exercise video using stick figures. So far we've covered searching and analyzing your reference images, and in the first video we traced on top of them, and in the second one we copied them on the side, trying to simulate a 3D volume out of them. And all of these have served us to improve our sense of proportions, our representation of 3D volumes, to improve the communication between our eyes, our head, and our hands, and also to avoid drawing the same pose over and over again. In this third part, we will continue to practice using stick figures, but this time without the use of references. We will use what we learned and apply those concepts to these new drawings using only our imagination. Now, this doesn't mean that you should aim to never use references while doing your work. On the contrary, I think that that's a good thing, but it is also really helpful to start training your memory too, and I have to thank my buddies at Discord that gave me the idea of making an exercise to start training this area too. Hello, my name is Jos Gonzalez, and in this channel I try to document all the ideas that pop into my head, all the research that I do, and all the tips that I have learned through my own art journey, so that it can serve as a guide on what you can do, or maybe what you want to avoid doing if you're looking to do something similar. Okay, so we have our sheets of paper, our pencil. What's to be done about that? Do we just start drawing? What about my blank canvas sphere? Or what if my hands or my eyes are simply not ready to begin doing something without any sort of training wheels? If this is something that crosses your mind, don't worry. By now you have the necessary principles to pay attention to while drawing your stick figures. Oh, and you can pause the video right now if you want to get your pencil and your paper if you want to follow along. Okay, so first, as we've seen in the last couple of videos, what you want is to start thinking in 3D and try to simulate that. With this in mind, you can begin with a few exercises of just drawing the separate elements to warm up, like the head or the torso or some sphere shapes. You can use a couple of lines just representing the center of these spheres looking to a certain angle, so that it starts to simulate what happens if it's looked from the side or from the top or from below, and so on. You can do this kind of exercises as much as you want. Now second, once you start to feel a little bit more warmed up, you can start drawing really simple poses like a standing pose. Maybe a couple of those being seen from the front to gain a little bit of confidence, and then start rotating your figure or the angle in which it is seen. I think that making a couple of these will make you feel more comfortable and more confident to start drawing more complex poses. And while you start to draw a more complex pose, think about the intention of that pose. You can even act it, or maybe spend some seconds really trying hard to imagine it in your head. And I know that this might be more difficult from one person to another, because as humans, some of us are more or less visual than others. But when your mind starts to have like a lot of blurriness, or maybe you simply don't have any image whatsoever, try to ask yourself these kind of questions. Like, if I were running, for example, like, where is my spine pointing at? Or where are my elbows positioned when I do this or that? Go a section at a time. And after you have a clearer idea, you can draw really soft lines. That will help you determine if you were correct and continue. And if not, you can just draw multiple attempts until something feels right in your drawing. Once you have like a better understanding on the pose, you can start cleaning up and maybe draw harder lines on your drawings on top of that, and add the remaining elements of the stick figure. Now the fourth point, and continuing to talk about an intention of a pose, we've mentioned before that the spine is going to help a lot to determine where everything else goes. So try to use that to your advantage. Maybe you can draw the spine first, then the head, then the direction of the pelvis and the shoulder, and the rest will most likely be more easy to place in a way that makes sense. Now notice that the more stick figures that you draw, probably the more confident you will feel, and you will probably start to fall in sort of like a comfort zone, and you will start to draw maybe poses that you really like over and over again. And we've covered before that you should avoid doing this. So the 5th point that we covered before is to go out from your comfort zone as much as you can. If a pose that you were struggling before is no longer that difficult, you can start thinking of more complex poses, of more complex angles, or of different body types. It doesn't matter if the stick figure doesn't look right. It's better to fail a lot and to have a lot of wonky stick figures right now, since this will make you more comfortable accepting new challenges in more complex stuff to come. Another principle or term that we barely touched before was to consider the volume or the space in which our stick figures are when we're drawing them. So try to avoid things like having the feet always at the same height on your paper, or remember that the perspective of your stick figures will change depending on two things: A, the position of your stick figure, and B, the position in which your stick figure is being looked at. Now, an extra thing that I want to mention here, call it a principle or call it a concept or whatever, is to try to see that the fact that you're not using references right now is not that you have a restriction. On the contrary, you have freedom to do more things. While you're drawing, maybe at first you have the intention of drawing a certain pose and you start drawing that, but in the middle of the drawing you notice that maybe if you rotate the arm in a way, or maybe if you do something else with the legs, it actually looks cooler. Maybe you lose the intention of the original pose that you have in mind, but that's completely fine. Maybe you can do both of the poses and compare them and see what works best. Maybe you will start to figure out new ways of expressing like a better emotion through these stick figures if you don't have them clear in your mind at first. Maybe you do the top part of the torso once and you want to try different positions for the legs and stuff like that, which if you're looking at a reference and you're trying to copy the reference all the time, you're probably limited in that area. But if you're not using reference, you can try new things. So I think that depending on what you want to achieve here, like if you want to really portray an intention that you have clear in your mind, probably it's best for you to act it, to take yourself a picture and maybe copy that reference. But if you're just trying to figure out like what can look cool without having like a really straight direction, drawing without references can be really helpful as well. So kind of like take the best of any of the sides that you choose to draw from. So there you go. Remember that these exercises are for you to enjoy, so make as much as you want and you can. I recommend that you do this on a notebook or a sketchbook, since this is a nice way for you to have a nice record of everything that you're doing, but any piece of paper will actually do. Do not stress too much if your stick figures do not look really appealing or even understandable right now. Even if the goal is to make something as simple as stick figures, you are training a lot of things at once right now. Your mind, your eyes, your hands, and your memory after all. As before, what I recommend is that when you're doing these drawings, you put at least your 80% of attention while doing this, because this will make you improve faster and also will make you understand better the next exercises to come. This will be the end of using our stick figures for now, but in new videos I will start covering new yet still kind of simple tricks and tips that you can use to improve and enjoy your drawings. As always, thank you so much for watching. I hope that this video was useful, and if it was, consider booping both the like and subscribe buttons, and I hope to see you on the next one. I leave you with Booba in 3, 2, 1...